Still watching this morning on ITV and next discussion. This time we shall be looking at something different. You know, the last guest was trying to analyze the crisis has been rocking the APC party for some days, especially as regards the Edo State election. The primaries for the PDP will be holding today in Edo State, but we are going to be looking at a much different issue. This time we are looking at drug abuse, and we all know the devastating effects these don't. There are such things, or maybe illicit drugs do to individuals. And tomorrow is the International Day against illicit drugs. Okay, yes. Tomorrow, International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking, which is June 26th. So to set the pace, we decided to have a discussion this morning in the studio. I have with me the founder, counselor. Okay, let me just take the name, then she will do the other introduction. Alima Nuruddin. Yes. You're welcome to the program.
Thank
you. You are an outreach program for drug education and reintegration.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's begin with creating like an awareness. What is drug abuse? Most people don't really understand. Some persons feel it is only when you or maybe you take too much dose of Panadol or normal prescriptions, that's drug abuse, or maybe you decide to take. Just tell us, what is drug abuse?
So even from your description, that can also be considered as drug abuse.
Okay.
When you take more than prescribed or under-prescribed, or when you take it for a particular reason, or when you want to attain a certain euphoric phase.
Yeah.
So all of those can be considered as drug abuse. Drug abuse is basically when you take something not for the purpose it's meant to be taken, but for a different purpose. A lot of people take these drugs not because they have a headache or they have a stomach ache or because of something, but because there's a certain euphoric feeling that these drugs give to them. That's the reason why they take the drugs. And in the process, they become addicted and dependent on those drugs. So that's when it all becomes dangerous.
So when you say illicit drugs, are there disparity between drug abuse and illicit drugs?
Drug abuse and substance abuse are like two different things. Mostly when you look at it, drug abuse and illicit drugs, most of the time are those drugs that are not supposed to be sold without prescription, or those drugs that have been smuggled. Okay, all of those are considered illicit drugs because they are not supposed to be where they are.
Yes.
And they are not supposed to be misused, but they are. And then drugs generally are considered prescription drugs. But substances can be considered as things like marijuana, glue, sock away, and all of those other things that people advise to use just to get high. Yes.
So why do we have people have to take drugs to be high? Are there no other means for someone to feel, okay, I want to feel relaxed? Must they go into drugs? Must they take drugs?
So some people, it's not really about feeling relaxed. That is why they take those drugs. So everybody has a reason why they take the drugs. Okay? Some people will tell you because they just want to calm down. Some people will tell you they want to forget their worries. So some people will just tell you, I just want to get away from everything that's happening around me. And some people will tell you, I need it because I need to focus. So it's the reason why you take drugs is like everybody has a reason why they take drugs. And everybody has the particular purpose that actually pushes them into taking those drugs. So it's really differ from person to person.
Because we've had incidents where some drug peddlers will tell you that they're into business because people want them to be there. People patronize them based on their body system. They believe by the time they take these drugs, it puts them in the position they want to be as regards life. So let's look at it. Who is responsible for having these illicit drugs out there in the market? Are we saying that the government has failed or the people themselves?
So I don't like portioning blame when it comes to the issue of drug abuse, because if we're going to go by that, then all of us have to be blamed.
Okay.
Because we all have a corporate social responsibility to play in stopping the spread of people that take drugs. But some of us have been negligent in that field. Some of us have done our very best, and some of us are still doing our best, okay? But the truth is, when it comes to that particular topic, there's a lot that still needs to be done, okay? You find some drug sellers or peddlers that have never taken the drugs, but they sell them, okay? So for them, it's basically a business. They are not in it because they want to get high. And there are people that have gone from peer pressure to start taking the drugs, to I don't want the life I'm living, to start taking the drugs, to poverty, unemployment, and so many other factors that have actually contributed to a reason why somebody will tell you, I'm taking the drug. Because I can tell you now, maybe I started taking the drug because my friend was taking it, and then peer pressure is why I started taking it. And then you, on the other hand, can just basically tell me, no, I was depressed and I needed something to take my mind off it. Okay, so there are so many different factors that actually lead to somebody taking the drugs, and we cannot also avoid the fact that there's a lot of correlation between mental health and substance abuse. In Nigeria, I'm sorry to say, we actually always ignore the fact that mental health plays a very, very vital role in everything that we do, especially when it comes to all this mental health disorder, because substance abuse disorder, or any kind of addiction disorder, is also considered a mental health issue. But not everybody can actually know that or understand that, because when you just hear substance abuse or drug abuse, you just believe it's just one thing on its own. But they play a very important role. Some people might start getting addicted to those kind of drugs due to their mental health issues, while some is the drugs that they're taking that will lead them to have a certain mental health issue. So it's like everybody has a role to play, and the most important role that we have to play actually is to reduce the stigma associated with those people that want to actually seek help. Like the theme for this year, the International Drug Day, is actually better knowledge for better care.
Yes.
If we actually have a better understanding of these drugs and how they work, how they affect our development, how they affect growth, and all of these things, it would actually go a long way in curbing the menace. Because basically there's a lot of myth surrounding it.
Now we have children, we have young adults going into drugs. Well, how do we address these issues of getting young children as low as 6, 5 going into drugs? So what's push a child of 5? How do you
that is where
take care of this?
Theme for this year, it's actually, for me, the moment I saw it, it actually kind of spoke to me personally, because that's where it comes to play. Better knowledge for better care. If these children have a better knowledge of the dangers surrounding
how do you educate a child?
It's a Catch Them Young program that we all have to get our hands involved in. When I was driving down here with my sister in the car, the only thing I was thinking about is all those bikers, okay? These are people that automatically interact with the young folks. Do you understand what I'm saying? Even if you don't interact with the young folks, sometimes somewhere you could have sent that child to buy you a cigarette or something. You don't even have to sit down to have a conversation with that child. In the process of buying you that cigarette, that child one day might want to try, why does uncle or auntie always send me to get this thing? That is not the kind of knowledge we need to imbibe in these children. We need to make them understand that this is not the way of life, okay? In our curriculums, like for instance, now we've removed history, which is very vital. If you go back in history and you make them understand that them Nnamdi Azikiwe, them Aminu Kano and all of those people, they didn't do drugs, okay? Use history as an example to teach these children, to get them involved in their society, to make them believe that they are the custodians of the society. They play a vital role. If I'm not here today, you are the next person in charge. But we don't even have a mentorship, proper structured mentorship program in the country right now. And you're talking about a 6-year-old child going into drugs, when even from the family there's neglect. But it's always easier for us to just blame the government for everything, forgetting the fact that it starts from me and it starts from you. If you see a child doing something wrong today and you don't correct that child, you don't expect that child to change, because he's a child, he's a growing child. So he automatically believes that, since the elder is not telling me what I'm doing is wrong, then technically he's right. And then when children go through, there's a lot of attention that we need to pay to details of our children surrounding us. And that's where we actually neglect them, which is terrible. Because there is no way a 5-year, a 6-year, 7-year-old will start taking drugs and you as the parents will not know. I actually had a client one time who said that her son started taking drugs at the age of 6. And I was like, and you didn't realize that until the boy was 15? It was the child that actually told me that he actually started a very long time ago. He's sure he was 6. As in, he wasn't even sure when he started, but it's just like, I'm sure I started when I was 6. And I was asking the mother the question, and she said she actually found out 2 years ago. How is it that you don't realize that your son has started experimenting at the age of 6, but you noticed it when he was about what, 13? 13. So where was your mind between the age of 6 and the age of 13? Do you see the gap now? So if there was a way that you notice it, you pay attention to your children, and there's a very, very good communication between you and your ward, or even not even that, the neighbors. When growing up, our neighbors could say that, you are doing wrong, and correct you.
Yes, but now the norms are not there
exactly again. Now it's more like, don't touch my child. You have parents taking their children out of school. Why? Because of
the teacher
punishing a child. Do you get where I'm coming from? So how do you expect those children to respect their teachers tomorrow?
All right, let's look at the, let's go into the effect of these illicit drugs and the abuse of some of them. I know there are, you've mentioned factors that may push one to want to take drugs. What does these drugs do to them? I'm more concerned about children because, like you said, you need to catch them young. Just like the team said, knowledge. So what does these drugs do to children at a very tender age?
See, apart from the health consequences that this drug has, it has serious adverse effect not only on the child that's taking it, but on the family, the society, and the country at large. See, if you find a 6-year-old that has already been habituated to taking drugs, okay, it would be super difficult for that child to think of any kind of development for himself or even the country, which is a fault already in the system. And we say that the younger ones are supposed to take over and lead, right?
Yeah.
But what example have we set for them to take over and lead? This child is damaging himself or herself health-wise, destroying the structure that she is supposed or he is supposed to lay, because of the only thing that an addict can think about at a particular time when the urge arises is how to actually quench that urge. He's not thinking about you, he's not thinking about himself, he's not thinking about anything else, but I just need to get my drug, which is already a very, very dangerous thing. How would it feel like, okay, a 6-year-old started taking drugs at the age of 6, and then by what, age 18, you go to the hospital, maybe you think you have a headache, and then they tell you kidney, liver, or lungs, or something. And then your life flashes in front of you, and you realize that you've actually wasted your youth because you've not done anything about it. And then, God forbid, it's somebody who doesn't even have money to foot the hospital bill. The family goes now and starts looking for money to foot the hospital bill for that child, whereas that money could be used to educate that child. So for us to be able to prevent all of these crimes and things from happening, we need to pay more attention. We have a lot of young ones that the truth is they actually go into all of these social vices because they are screaming for help emotionally, but nobody is paying attention to listen to them. All we see is the smile on the face, but I can tell you I'm fine, but I'm not fine. And we keep forgetting the fact that this mental health issues, especially depression, is not something that only adults go through. Even a child can go through depression. We have a lot of children that are depressed.
Yes, we've heard of children committing suicide
exactly.
because of depression.
And most of these things is because of the lack of emotional attachment
from the parents or maybe the society as
exactly.
a whole.
You give birth to a child and you feel like, okay, it's about time for you to start caring for yourself. It's okay for you to teach the child to know that at a point in time you have to be on your own, you have to care for yourself. But pay attention to those details of the emotion that that child is displaying at a particular time. I can walk up to you and say, I need to talk to you. And you tell me you're busy. You do realize that that split second of you're busy to even listen to what I have to say, because you barely looked up from whatever is it you're doing to see what the expressions on my face are, and you didn't even pay attention to the tone of my voice, That alone can actually push a child to a lot of different things. So you would be surprised that at that point in time, I said, Daddy, I need to talk to you about something. But I'm busy, Halima, I'll call you back later. And I walk out. And the next person I have a contact with to talk to is a friend who's probably into drugs. And I'm like, I'm tired of this kind of things that is happening to me. It's like, don't worry, I have something that will ease your worries. What do you think will happen in that space?
We'll definitely introduce him.
Exactly. And that is a bad friend. But the problem here now is the parents probably do not even know that Halima has that friend. Okay? That was just the first person I came in contact with who pretended to listen to me while putting me on the wrong track.
Now let's look at the correlation between crime and drugs.
Yeah.
Are there a link there? Because there are some persons who tell you, I just take this thing, like you said, to get high. But some persons tell you, I take this thing as it stimulates me to do things ordinarily I cannot do. Is there any correlation between crime and drug abuse?
Yes, there is actually. It has been shown, it has been researched, and there's a very, very big link between drug and crime. Okay. But when you talk about people that take it just because they want to get high, everybody has a threshold in whatever is it you do in life. I can tell you I can take 3 liters of water and I'll be fine. And you can take 2 liters of water and your head will start spinning in circles because for you it's already too much for your system. Okay? And it's different if you take it because you want to have that feeling of your head spinning and you just sit in one place and clear your head. But let me give you an instance now. There was a time we went for an outreach and then an elderly man came to make a speech. His presentation was that he regretted the life he lived 20 years ago. And the only reason why he regretted it was because he used to buy drugs for the youths to get high so that they can commit all kinds of atrocity, especially during the electoral period. Okay? So those particular kind of people that actually want to take the drugs because they don't want to get the feeling of empathy or sympathy when they want to commit a particular crime, those ones already have a mental health disorder that needs to be treated. And it's been enhanced whenever they take that drug that they can commit whatever kind of atrocity. Okay? So it depends on your mission, your motive. But the truth is, when you become an addict, okay, sometimes it's very difficult for you to control your spontaneous emotions and how you go about doing things. You just find yourself reacting spontaneously to things that maybe at the end of the day, when you're calm, you probably regret those things or wonder why exactly did you do those things. So that is the relation, because it takes away your ability to think between right and wrong. So you do things without knowing whether it is right or it is wrong until after you are back to your normal senses, before you might remember to analyze some things. Some things might be told to you that you did this, and you'll be wondering how, when, and how did I do those things. So that is the problem with it. The imbalance it causes in the brain, that is the number one danger that it has.
Now, let's look at the system, the Nigerian system as a whole, so that we'll bring it to the home front. We know we have agencies that are supposed to address issues like this. The NDLA, they are there trying to ensure that these people that engage in such trade or illicit drugs, as per se, are being curtailed. But yet we still have high numbers, especially when you go to the rural areas. Does it mean that the government is not touchlighting or lighting such areas? Why do we concentrate on just the urban cities and we leave those in the rural areas? For instance, you go to a community, by the time you pass through, the snitch you hear from there is just smell of maybe marijuana or something. And then when you come to the city side, they make arrests by the expressways, and that's all.
So you see, that's another problem that we actually have to look into, the policies that we have. We need to actually make sure that they are properly implemented, or should I even say if they're actually implementable policies. Because one thing I've come to notice is that a lot of countries, especially in Africa, have policies, but the problem is they are not implementable. Okay? Yes, as much as I'll have to say that the NDLEA are doing their best in the field of curtailing this thing, especially when it comes to actually nabbing the drug sellers, barons, and all of those ones. Yes, definitely, certainly. But then again, there's a lot that has to be done. What's been done, and what is being done, it's not enough to actually tackle the whole issue. We need a bottom-to-top approach. we've been dealing on the surface for too long. As you said, everything is happening in the urban areas. What happens to those at the rural areas? We're forgetting that one day, those people at the rural areas will be the ones in the urban areas. Okay? So what is it that they are going to bring now into the urban areas? It's only the knowledge that they know. So we have to go back to them and ensure that whatever awareness, sensitization, whatever is it we're going to do, it has to start from them. Because every day there is somebody leaving the rural area to the urban area. Every day there is somebody leaving the rural area to the urban area. So you think about the concentration now. Where is the focus? What knowledge is that person that is leaving the rural area to the urban area going to come with? I'll give you an example. In the urban area, for instance, now somebody gives birth to 8, 7 children. It's okay for them. Why? Because of the lifestyle there is totally different. And then that person comes to the urban area, but he's used to that particular kind of, I mean, it's nothing too difficult. And you realize that where you pay 20 naira for school fees, here you need 2,000 naira for school fees, which now results to a lot of children not being in school. Because that person will not want to go back to the rural area. To him now, he has civilized, which is another gap on its own. Those children would either now be forced to go into hawking or all kinds of other businesses, wheelbarrow pushing, bikers, and all of those other kind of menial businesses just to make ends meet. And then at the end of the day, father is too busy trying to ensure that there's food at home, not paying proper attention to the child that is now in the urban area, which is increasing the population of people that don't have the right kind of knowledge to understand the situation at hand. So we have to always make sure that whatever is it that we're going to do must have an impact from the rural areas.
All right, before we look at the rehabilitating victims of drugs abuse, are there solutions to all these problems? Do you think we can provide solutions to them?
The truth is, the number one solution is to make sure that awareness never stops. That is the number one thing we can always talk about. Awareness should never stop. People should understand that there are people out there that have a problem. And the problem they suffer from is their addiction disorder. Which addiction are we talking about? Drug and substance abuse addiction. Some people cannot live without it. Some people can manage to live without it. And some people, it's just a thing for leisure. Okay? Yes, as long as we keep creating the awareness around it, starting from the nursery schools. Because there are actually materials that can be used to teach a child right from your kindergarten that don't just, this is how you can actually prevent yourself from friends that would want to give you these kind of drugs. So as long as that kind of education is transcending and it keeps going from one person to the other, from one person to the other, it would actually help a lot in curbing the menace. That child one day might be in secondary school and will be the one to tell somebody else that don't do this, because right from when I was young, I was told the effect of this and I have seen examples. Do you see where it's coming from? And then, most importantly, we have to find a way to minimize the stigma in the society.
Okay.
That is very, very crucial. A lot of people want to seek help, but they can't do that because there is too much stigma in the society.
Okay, I think if the producer is ready, I think there's a report on drug abuse. So take a look at that report. So while the discussion continues after the report. So if that report is ready, let's have it on air so that our viewers will get to know what we actually are talking about here in the studio.
Advice to the public on the coronavirus, also called COVID-19 pandemic. The World Health Organization, WHO, recommends you take the following measures. Know that most people who become infected experience mild illness and recover, but it can be more severe for others. Take care of your health and protect others by doing the following.
Regularly and thoroughly clean your hands with an alcohol-based hand sanitizer or wash them with soap and water. Washing your hands with soap and water or using alcohol-based hand sanitizer kills viruses that may be on your hands.
Maintain at least 1 meter, which is 3 feet distance between yourself and anyone who is coughing or sneezing.
Hands touch many surfaces and can pick up viruses. Once contaminated, hands can transfer the virus to your eyes, nose, or mouth. From there, the virus can enter your body and can make you sick.
Make sure you and the people around you follow good respiratory hygiene. This means covering your mouth and nose with your bent elbow or tissue when you cough or sneeze. Then dispose of the tissue immediately.
Stay home if you feel unwell. If you have a fever, cough, and difficulty breathing, seek medical attention and call in advance. Calling in advance will allow your healthcare provider to quickly direct you to the right health facility. If you develop fever, cough, and difficulty breathing, seek medical advice promptly, as this may be due to a respiratory infection or other serious condition.
Be informed.
Be prepared.
Be smart.
Be safe.
Be ready to fight COVID-19.
Related to poverty. There is this press reports that the Chinese ambassador to Nigeria some time ago in a meeting said that the problem Nigeria has is that we are not creating jobs. That most of the crime issues of insecurity in this country are related to unemployment, and that we should, try and create jobs because we are a rich nation. Now, the truth about it is that sometimes, and in fact, most of these youths you are talking about, they are taking these drugs out of frustration. You will be seeing a situation where somebody is a beggar, and when he begs for money, he will not use the money to go and eat, because if he eats, it may not sustain him as much as taking drug. So he needs a high to forget his sorrows. I think this whole thing has to do with all other forms of insecurity, crime, because if you are inclined towards crime and that you have a reason to do a criminal thing because you need money, you need drug to strengthen yourself. Are you getting it? To be sure that you can to embolden yourself. These things are all related to unemployment. I don't think I want to believe that the drug thing comes after the thought of criminality. The fact that you are jobless and you now find out that you must do something, you must steal, you must kill, you must do something to keep alive. Then you need something that will support that your state, your physical and mental state to achieve that thing. Because ordinarily you will not be able to, snatch a bag or kill somebody or, go for armed robbery. So you see how these things are generated. I think that's what I believe in. Well, it has to do with the economy, create jobs, give you. Because you see, every day, look, the latest thing is that we are 200 million now, and that's official. About some 4 years ago, we were less, maybe 200, 194 or something. Now, the truth about it is, it all boils down to insecurity.
All right, you've had that respondent there analyzing why people go into drug. That was one aspect we've not really looked at, unemployment. Somebody who is unemployed will only think of taking drugs for him to maybe realize that my present situation is worse than what I am today. Why would you say you're unemployed and next thing you take to drugs?
As he mentioned, frustration. Yeah, it's not that you're thinking that you're unemployed. It's the thought of, okay, I've graduated and I've done the service of the nation and everything, and I'm here still searching for the job. It's the frustration of the fact that you feel you're qualified, but you're not being appreciated.
So in that case, drugs
that is one of it. That's why I say for even a lot of people, it's a variety of reasons. You'll find some people that are not employed, they are graduates, but they actually innovate to find a way to mince and live their lives, okay? But for some people that they just believe that it's the white collar jobs that they are supposed to go into immediately after coming out of school and after the service of the nation. So it burdens a lot of frustration on people, and it's all due to the economy of the situation and all of those things. So you think that, okay, they say 4 years, they say 5 years, you go through ASU strike, you go to so many other issues, trying to get out of school, come out, finish NYC, maybe in some remote village, and then you come back into the your own state or town, and then you're now back in the job hunting field, because not everybody that actually finished serving is being retained. So you've actually spent a whole year in a field thinking and hoping that maybe you'll be retained, and you're not retained. And then now you're back at home believing now, okay, you now have responsibilities, but now how do you cater for those responsibilities? So that is when the whole frustration starts to settle in, and then before you know, one thing or the other, one thing will lead to something, and then somebody will find themselves.
All right, as a way of rounding up this discussion, let's look at rehabilitating victims of drug abuse. How do you do it? As you've established that you are into a foundation that work with issues like this. How do we rehabilitate them, so that, because the stigma is there also, so how do we get them back to normal? So
right now, actually, we're actually running a program, but before I mention that, there is something that in the report that the UNODC released 2019, there's actually a part where it states that 1 in 10 drug addicts actually need rehabilitation. So which means that not everybody that is taking drugs need to actually go to a rehabilitation center. Okay. There are other forms, therapy, counseling, or there are so many other kind of therapies that people can actually go through that would help them recover from their addiction, not necessarily having to go into a rehab, detox, and all those other processes. Okay, but then again, there are people that want to actually go and get recovered, but one of the most challenges they face, as I mentioned earlier on, is the issue of stigma. So there is this thing whereby for you to actually go to a rehab, you're considered somebody that is mentally unstable, okay, because of the stigma associated with it. So trying to break the norm, we have a volunteer program, okay.
Our advice, we just let it be our discussion, because if you go into your own company, you won't be paying us for that. It's part of an example I'm giving you. It's like creating a volunteer program, whereby they are community-based people that can help you understand your own kind of addiction, and they will be a referral chain to where you can get help. Do you understand? It's not going to be labeled like a rehab center or a psychiatrist. That's basically what we're saying. That's another means of breaking the stigma. So you see, it's not like you're going to get help at a rehab center or you're going to get help at a psychiatric center, but you know that where you are going to is just a building, probably without a name, but when you walk in, you know what your mission is in that particular place. So that's another way to break the stigma. Okay, and then a lot of awareness creation for people to understand that these people have actually gone into this and they're now ready to leave that habit and reform themselves. Okay, whereby you can create a reintegration system whereby it's a very, very good platform for them to transcend from I was an addict to I am no more an addict. Okay, not a situation whereby you see somebody that is now recovering or has recovered and then you keep mentioning the past to the person, which is also mentally decapitating that person, because it's like, okay, I'm still not good enough, or I can't be good enough just because of what I did in my past. For some people, it can be a challenge for them to push themselves and become better, but for some people, they will tolerate. So those are the chains that we have to break. All right, as we leave the studios very soon, any last word? Is your advice to especially the younger ones, because I'm so concerned about catching them young, and then to the parents, especially because they neglect their roles by checking their children while growing up. And that's, like you mentioned, a child from 6 up to 13 years, parent never knew he was into drugs. So what would be your advice to parents and children?
Okay, my advice would actually go back to the theme of this year. Better knowledge for better care. Yes. So we all have to be able to have the right kind of knowledge associated with drug, substance abuse, addiction, and all of those things, so that we can actually care for not just ourselves, but for our immediate environment and the nation at large.
What about the government? Because we can't do anything without mentioning them.
They're actually the ones in the forefront for the better knowledge for better care.
All right.
Because of improvement in the rehab centers and all of those other kind of aspects that they actually play in a role. All
right. I must thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Alima Nuruddin, right? Yes. Thank you so much. It's worth the while, and I believe our viewers out there may have learned one or two things. The most important thing is we should try and reduce or stop the stigmatization of victims of drug abuse, because we all have experiences, maybe not just from our homes, in our society. We've seen people come out from rehab, and some persons will just tag you, just like they do to ex-convicts, and they'll tag you, this guy is a drug addict, even after rehabilitation, and it makes them go back into the act again. So I thank you so much for being on the program. I hope maybe subsequent events like this will have you again in the studio.
Inshallah.
All right, this is where we end the discussion, and as well as the program this morning on ITV for today. On behalf of my co-presenter, Joseph Kadri, we urge you to have a nice day. But remember, the Pidgin segment of this morning on ITV, Waiting the Apple, will come your way same time, 7 a.m. tomorrow morning with Ekanem and Chuka. Until then, have a lovely day and stay tuned to ITV.